Next, we'll look at intrusion detection systems and ways to secure mobile devices. Intrusion detection systems come in basically two forms. We have the electromechanical type that are cheap and fairly reliable, and we also have volumetric types that are a little more expensive and provide just a little bit more false positives than the electromechanical. The electromechanical types are magnetic switches, things like the metal foil that we put on windows, and when somebody breaks the window, it breaks the conductive foil and triggers the alarm. And then we also will look at pressure-sensitive mats that detect when someone enters a room. The volumetric type use generally either radio frequency or acoustic energy to identify motion, usually through Doppler effect. There's also the infrared type, the photoelectric type, that detects changes in heat patterns that would identify a human walking through a cool room. So intrusion detection devices can be expensive, but will only trigger an alarm. The alarm doesn't stop the bad guy from doing bad things. It requires human intervention, and here again we see the need for the security guard. These intrusion detection systems generally should have redundant power supplies. If a bad guy can knock out the electricity to your building, then your intrusion detection systems and your alarms are now defeated. So they need redundant power supplies, battery backup, things along these lines. Again, they need to feed to a central security system where we have guards monitoring, or we notify the police or the fire department. They should have a fail-safe configuration. In other words, if these detection devices do fail, that they don't lock in humans that might cause injury to the human beings. They should be resistant to tampering, and we should recognize that this is only one component in the many, many layers of security required to implement a true physical security system. One form of the electromechanical sensor is the pressure-sensitive mat that detects someone entering a room or a facility. We had discussed these a little bit when we were looking at the man trap. In the man trap, they're a little bit more than just a pressure-sensitive mat. That was also specifically identifying the weight of the individual, actually a biometric measurement. Another electromechanical sensor, again, relatively inexpensive and easy to implement, is the contact sensor. This says that if a window is open, the contact is broken and the alarm goes off, or if a door is open, things along these lines. Relatively easy to install, relatively inexpensive, and fairly secure as far as false positives, fairly accurate regarding the false positives. Other types are the closed circuit, again, very much like what we saw earlier. These are switches that detect when a door is opened, a window is open, something along these lines. So the closed circuit says turn off the alarm when the circuit is closed. If the circuit gets broken, sound the alarm. Now, volumetric sensors are another form of intrusion detection system. These generally are either radio frequency, acoustic, or thermal, infrared, to identify motion inside the field of monitoring. So the radio frequency type emit a radio frequency wave. That wave reflects off of objects within the field of coverage. If there's motion in that field of coverage, an effect called the Doppler effect will actually change the frequency of the reflected signal. It's this change in frequency that is detected and then triggers the alarm. With the thermal, by the way, acoustic also operates in the same fashion. We send out a sound wave, and that sound wave reflects off of objects. If there's motion in the field, the reflected sound wave doesn't match the transmitted sound wave due to Doppler effect, and this is enough to trigger the alarm. With the infrared technology, what we see is a heat pattern or a heat signature, which is the byproduct of a human being present in the field of monitoring. Here we see the volumetric, which is a photoelectric type of sensor. This is a light beam that gets sent from transmitter to a receiver. If the light beam is broken, the alarm sounds. We see these very often in the movies as bad guys are trying to break into the very sophisticated security system in a bank or some other sort of vault. The laser beam that gets broken that triggers the alarm. Acoustic and seismic. Now these are sound waves. They detect vibrations in the air. And unfortunately, these have a great deal of false positives. In other words, the alarm triggers if there's a thunderbolt, or if a plane flies too near, or if the garbage truck drops the dumpster too heavily. Again, many false positives. The alarm goes off and it really was just a loud noise.